Hello everybody. Today I wanted to talk to you about time-lapse photography, things that I've learned, some issues that I've been having with interval speed times, and things to avoid in time-lapse photography. So here we go. Time-lapse photography is something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. Pretty much since I started photography, it always kind of intrigued me, going out and making something unique looking. And I've been wanting to do a project ever since coming to Whistler, and I've finally ended up thinking, holy crap, I need to get down and do this. As you've already seen, I've already shot a sequence and it ended up looking pretty nice, but then I kind of went home and thought about it, and I thought, why don't I learn all the theories so I make way less mistakes and I get way less discouraged as a result? Because the more mistakes you make in time-lapse, the harder it gets, because every time you shoot a sequence which on the screen looks like a 4-second sequence, takes about half an hour to an hour depending on how far you go and stuff. So in the past, I believe I was unsuccessful because I didn't learn the basics of time-lapse. I just tried to learn by doing, and I made a lot of mistakes which were very discouraging. So I went out there, Googled time-lapse photography, Googled mistakes to avoid, and here's what I've learned. So time-lapse is a technique that involves either taking a long video and speeding it up on the computer, or taking a whole bunch of photographs, stitching them together on the computer and making them into a video. And what I've done in the past, over the past year for this YouTube and the vlogging thing, is I just put the camera on the tripod, put it in video mode and let it go. And I've learned that this is definitely a quick and dirty technique. It's very easy, very simple, but it's not the technique that you want to use if you want the best results. So what I'll end up doing over the next few months is I'll learn how to make it really work with photographs. Okay, let's rewind a little bit and look at the basics. What you need for time-lapse photography is obviously a camera, a intervalometer. It's a little remote. Let me just get it. It's a little remote that plugs into your camera, and you can set it automatically and set an interval time, and it will take a photo every however many seconds you need it to take a photo, and a tripod. So the thing that I've had the most trouble with is deciding and setting an interval time. Now, the best thing that I've learned about the interval time is that it's better to set a fast interval time, so like a short interval time, than a long interval time if you're not sure what interval time to set, because you can always speed the video up in post even more, but you can't slow it down. Now, the biggest misunderstanding I've had about interval times is that in the past, I couldn't work out why the camera didn't want to work the way I wanted it to. But that was because every time I set an interval, I assumed that the interval time is the time in between every photo. So for example, once the shutter opens and then the shutter closes, the interval time was between each shutter close and shutter open. But what it actually is the interval time is between each shutter actuation. So you need to include the time of the exposure into the interval time. And previously there was an issue with that, because I would set a 2-second interval for a 3-second exposure, and so the remote would try and trigger at the start of the exposure, and then 2/3 into the exposure it would try to trigger the shutter, and the camera would just freak out, and I wasn't sure why that was. Now I finally understood that, so I can go out and have less troubles. So here are some starter guidelines for choosing an interval time. 1 second, which is very short. For fast moving clouds and some traffic. Between 2 and 10 seconds, which is medium, is for slower moving clouds, sunsets, sunrises, and moving crowds. Long, between 10 and 30 seconds, are for moving shadows, sun moving across a cloudless sky, or a star sequence. Longer times, which I probably won't end up using, are for construction projects and fast growing plants, and those times are around 5 to 15 minutes interval time. That's like ridiculous. So it's always good to know what things to avoid, and those things are small plants in the foreground, especially at fast shutter speeds, because they're very distracting. Fast shutter speeds as well, which is a thing that I've had trouble with as well, because it produces a very jerky looking footage. Now have a look at what I've just done to see what I mean. So I've noticed that time lapses can get a little bit boring, especially if you use the same point of view for every sequence that you make. So it's good to vary it up and think of unique angles to use. Not taking test shots. That's something that I've done before. It's like where you take a test shot, zoom in, check the focus. If you think about it, if you just take a photo, which took you, 15 seconds to take, and then you move on and the photo doesn't work, you're bummed, but that's okay. If you set a whole time lapse that's completely out of focus and you spend 20 minutes or an hour sitting by your camera, and then you find out that your focus is off, it's way more discouraging. Bad opening in the montage. I haven't had trouble with that because I haven't made a montage yet, but it's definitely good to have an eye-grabbing opening sequence that makes you stay and continue watching the video. So there it is. Hope you learned something with me. It's time for me to go out in the field and shoot some time lapses. Maybe see you out there. I am extremely grateful for watching, and I'd love if you like this video, and if you want to see a little bit more of my future time lapsing, please consider subscribing. Have a good day. Hang on, before you go, if there's any other tips that you can think of that I haven't covered, please leave a comment below. Maybe I can learn something from you. Until next time, bye.